before we begin working, the first thing that we want to do is open up a photo. Now this can be a photo you took of yourself, or you can follow along with the image that I've provided in the resources section. So go ahead and click open and select Jeremy Deegan Original if you're following along, and click open, and it'll open that image up in Photoshop. Now the first thing that I want to do here is to get rid of the background. If you took your photo in front of a background that you like, that's great, you're already one step ahead. But in this instance, I don't like this background and I want it to be all white. So the first thing that I need to do is remove the background. There's a couple different tools that we can use to do that. If I go to the fourth option down and I left click and hold, you can see we have the quick selection tool and the magic wand tool. I'm going to do the quick selection tool, and this basically works like tracing. It's going to find differences in values and try to trace out what it thinks it wants me to select. And this works really great and is really easy for beginners. So I'm going to just left click right here at a difference between my shirt and the background, and I'm going to hold down and drag around my shirt. And as I do, it's going to start guessing what it wants to draw. Now it missed my arm at the bottom, so I'm going to go down here and trace around my arm, and it's going to pick that up also. Now I can let go, and I can go up here by my collar, and I'm going to click and start tracing around my face, and it'll pick that up also. So this tool works really good. Now I'm going to hit Control D to deselect everything and show you the next tool, which is the magic wand tool. The magic wand tool is also going to find differences, but instead of tracing, I'm just going to click one time and it's going to find differences in values such as light and dark. There's a tolerance setting at the top, and based on what I set this is going to find the similar values to one another. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to set this number to 5 and click in my neck area, and you can see it's selected just a small portion of colors that are related to one another. Now if I change that to 50, it's going to select more colors around the area that are closely related. If I want to add to that selection, I can hold down the shift key and you'll see a plus icon added to the magic wand. If I left click, it will actually add to that selection, and I can hold down shift and keep clicking and filling in these areas. The great thing about the magic wand is I can always change the tolerance. So if I want to do fine details such as the hair, I could set it to a lower number, say 10 or 20. I can zoom in by hitting Control plus, and I can go ahead and hit shift and select some of these hair particles. Now this is going to be dependent on how well you want this to look. Of course, if you don't have crazy hair like I do, this might be a little easier. But basically, I could spend a long time going in here and selecting these things and making this look really good. But for the sake of this course, I'm just going to not worry about that now, so I can show you the rest of taking out the background. Now if you want to get rid of a selection, you can hold down the Alt key and it'll turn into a minus sign, and then when I click, it'll actually deselect. So I'm going to hit Control D to deselect everything. I'm going to select the quick selection tool and go ahead and select me again. Ooh, let me undo that and start over. Come on now. Okay, grab my arm here, and I've got that piece down there. I'm going to go ahead and grab my face. Alright, that looks really good. And I'm going to grab the magic wand and see if I can't select maybe a couple of these pieces. So I'm going to zoom in by hitting Control plus, just some of these bigger hair pieces. I'm going to hold shift and select these. It grabs some of that white background, but that's okay. We can always tune that up a little bit later. Make sure it's got all this piece down here. So just some of these bigger pieces, just so it looks halfway decent for this tutorial. Oh, see, it grabbed the white background there. I don't want that. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo. And let me do this one. Okay, I think that's good enough for now. You'll get the idea here in a minute. And let me deselect this little gray box down at the bottom. I don't want that in my arm. So I hit Alt and just deselect that little gray area at the bottom there. So now I just got me selected. Okay, Now that we have our selection made, we want to get rid of the background, and we're going to use a layer mask to do that. So with the layer selected, I'm just going to click on the Add Layer Mask button at the bottom. And as I do that, the background instantly goes away. And we could stop right here if we wanted to. I mean, this already looks really good. It looks like there's a little bit of bottom that got cut off, so I would want to crop that later on. And we're going to crop this whole photo anyways, but those things you just want to be aware of. I can see the transparent background going on right there at the very bottom. Now, if I wanted to refine this a little more, I can right-click on the layer mask itself, which is the black and white image, and go to Refine Mask. And then it's going to show me some options that will let me to actually refine this a little bit and try to get it looking a little smoother. Now, if I have the marching ants, that's our selection. If I change the view here, I can do an overlay. I can do on black, on white. So even with the on white, this already looks pretty good. Now you can see there's some of that gray in my hair, and we would want to try to clean that up, either by using the selection tools or some mask tools. With a mask, basically you have values. Wherever there's black, there's no information, and wherever there's white, there is information. So here, if you look on the layers panel, you can see where there's white is the picture of me. That means that I could actually grab a brush, make it a white color brush, and start painting, and can bring that information back in, or I can make it black and erase that information. So I might actually go in there and erase out some of that gray in the background by hand. And again, it depends on how detailed you want this to look and how good you want to look. But for this tutorial, I just want to kind of show you the basics. So I'm going to change it to on black, and we have some adjust edge options here that we can change. We can do shift edge, which is actually going to shift in the edge of our selection. So as I do that, you can see some of that stuff going away, and then we can actually add more edge if we wanted more there. So I might bring that down a little bit. We can make a higher contrast, and in doing so, it's not making a whole lot of difference on this particular one. We can do feather, which is actually going to kind of eat away at the image. And smooth is if we wanted to kind of round it out the selection a little bit and make it a little more smoother. So I really don't want a lot of feather and smoothing going on because I want the hair to be kind of detailed. I would add a little contrast and maybe shift the edge some. And you could play around with these settings to try to get how you want them to look. Now, I also have this little plus sign if I hover over the image that will try to fix some of these areas that aren't too good. So I'm just going to color right here, and you can see that that piece went away. So I'm going to do that in the hair, where I'm just going to click and hold and draw around, and it's going to try to guess and make the areas go away that shouldn't be there. And that seems to work pretty good, even though we get some bad hair particles flying around. Let's get rid of this white stuff on the top of the head here. Alright, so that cleaned it up pretty well. Let's see how that looks on a white background. Oh, it really ate away because of some of the settings that I have here. So maybe I need to change my shift edge back up a little higher, and you see it come back in. And the contrast, I can move that around to kind of see what the contrast is doing. So if it's low, you can kind of see through the hair a little more. As I move it up, it's going to eat away at it a little bit. Maybe a little bit of feathering. It's kind of a rough edge right there. I don't want too much feathering because it's softening that edge. So I'm just going to leave it here for now. I think this looks pretty good. Get rid of this right here. Okay, now I'm going to hit OK. All right. Now we have a transparent background with our image. So I can add a new layer, and I can put whatever I want. Actually, I need to move this down below because the background needs to be behind our image. So I'm going to move that down, and now I can fill this layer with whatever color I want and have that background. So I'm just going to pick a exaggeration of a color here, foreground color purple, and you can see it fills that in for me. But we want white, so I'm just going to change it to white. I'm going to go to Edit, fill, and hit OK. And now we have our image on a pure white background, just like we want.